Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience episode number 176. If you want clarity about your life and or your business, you can schedule a one-on-one coaching session with me. You can send an email to fr@francesrichards.com. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by elevating CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Our next guest, a human resource professional of 30 years. Her greatest joy is working with companies to develop employees and leaders to create a thriving company culture of success. Welcome, Pat Bell.
Good morning.
Pat, why don't you fill in the blanks and share with our audience? Why don't you tell us more about you and your business?
Well, sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Richards, for having me on today. I have had just an absolutely wonderful career in human resources. I started in '85 as a secretary and was able, through great mentoring, to make my way into the professional side of human resources as a generalist, manager, and ultimately as an HR director. And after many years, I decided that I really enjoyed the consulting side of human resources. I wanted to step away from the traditional HR role, which was really personnel when I joined in the 80s. And that was really more about enforcing rules and regulations. And I really enjoyed more the consulting side with managers and employees, helping them work through the coaching process and seeing them change their behaviors. In 2013, after several positions, I decided to start my own business, patbellhr.com, and I decided to be an HR consultant and wanted to go ahead and just jump in the entrepreneurial way and wanted to see how I could do, just looking for contracts and providing my services. And I had 3 great years where I was able to do that. And then I decided that I wanted to go back into a full-time position, but I continued to consult on the side, providing specialized and customized training as required. So I've just had a great mixture of both entrepreneurial business as well as returning back into corporate America.
Pat, tell us what you're most grateful for right now in your life.
Well, that is an excellent question. I think what I am most grateful for right now is I have learned that to have a fulfilling career and life, it doesn't start with chasing the almighty dollar. It starts with chasing the balance of doing your life, love work, and having the balance of being able to actually enjoy family and friends and my community. So I am in the place now in my 58th year where I'm able to benefit from all of my years of expertise, and I have found a job that I absolutely love, which is 100% leadership development and instruction, and still have the opportunity to consult where needed. I just have that perfect blend where it's all come together, and I'm still able to enjoy my career, my life, and I really feel like I have finally found that balance.
Pat, talk to us about HR and how things have changed and developed over the years, and what advice would you give us?
Sure. As I mentioned, when I joined Human Resources, I was actually an original, well, in my day, we were still allowed to be called Kelly Girls. So I was an HR temporary employee, and I worked my way up through what I call HR boot camp through a temporary service. And then I was recruited by a headhunter into my first professional entry-level HR role. And it really was personnel. It was making sure that people were following policies and procedures, typing up corrective actions, and unfortunately following a lot of people through the termination process. And I realized that I wanted to help people more before they got to that termination situation. And I saw how quickly managers seemed to give up on people. And the reality was there was so much miscommunication that created a gap that no one could overcome. And so I started to concentrate more on my communication skills, and I was able to work under excellent mentors throughout my career who saw my desire to want to be a different kind of HR person. So I quickly learned early in my career as an HR professional to not spend all my time in my office to call people and ask people to come to HR, because a lot of people view that as coming to the principal's office in the corporate environment. I decided to meet people where they were at. I went to their staff meetings. I was doing the management by walking around, which was really popular in the late 80s and early 90s. And then my career really transitioned, and I started to work under people who, instead of calling us personnel specialists, we became HR business partners, which really meant that it was our job to learn the business side of our customers so that we could truly understand some of their challenges and then gain that trust and build that credibility, so then we could leverage the things that we could do from an HR perspective, which really focused more on coaching and training skills and team building. And I really think that opened up and transitioned how a lot of people now see human resources.
And I notice when we look at some of the advertisements when they're hiring for HR specialists, and I think that I don't really think we see that term anymore. It's like people development. Mm-hmm. It's more centered around developing staff. And so I think that that's what you're speaking about in terms of, even when I speak to friends, and one of the biggest challenges is hiring good people.
Yes, absolutely. That really is the key. It doesn't matter if it's a multi-million-dollar company or a mom and pop shop. If you don't hire the right people who share your vision and who also share your values, all the technology and all the intelligence does you no good. The traditional way that people used to hire was strictly by that resume. And, we used to joke about circling resumes, circling keywords on resumes. Did they go to college? Did they go to a school that I liked? And do they have those keywords on the resume? Then a lot of HR people will determine that made a great candidate. Again, because I love to buck the system within reason, I would say I'm happy to look at resumes, but I also want to call people and I want to hear them talk. And I want to understand what is driving their decision to look at our particular company and what they want to do. And it was amazing to me that there were people who had professional resumes who didn't even know what was on their resume, and they couldn't speak to it, and they were so robotic in their responses. And I knew it wasn't a match. But when I would listen to someone, perhaps their resume wasn't something that was a well thought out road, but there were some curves and bends throughout their career. But I listened to why they wanted to join our organization. That's truly where you can connect a person to be in your organization. When you connect with people, and Stephen Covey talks about this, and I absolutely love everything that Stephen Covey does. When you connect with someone's heart and their soul, then you have their mind and you have their hands. And I used to always tell people the most critical role in human resources is the recruiter, because they are the gatekeeper to the culture of an organization. And unfortunately, many organizations hire entry-level recruiters who don't know how to value military service, who don't know how to value individuals who are choosing to pick a new career, or even women who are re-entering the workforce. And there were so many people who were being left out of career opportunities because they didn't fit that perfect model. So I think when we challenge our model of hiring and we put a higher value on who is screening candidates in and out of the organization, then organizations will see their culture change.
Pat, what problem exists in the world today that you would like to solve?
Dr. Richards, I truly believe that the most important relationship in an organization is the relationship between a supervisor and their direct employee. When they communicate well, when they can deal with challenges effectively, and everyone does their part in an organization, that organization can move mountains and exceed all of their goals. And so I really believe that my life's work is to help maximize that relationship between the employee and the supervisor, and to help pull down all of the negative stereotypes and really allow it to be a thriving coach situation.
Advice you wish you had followed.
Oh my, well, I probably have a lot of those things I've had to go back to. Advice that I wish I had followed. When I started my own consulting firm, I remember the definition of a consultant. I read a book called Internal Consulting, and it said, our job as a consultant is to not be responsible for the client's results. Our job is to assess the situation, lay out opportunities and decision points for the client. But we're not supposed to actually be so vested in their results that we cross that line from consultant to employee. And I crossed that line when I was a consultant a couple of times, where I cared more about the credibility of the department than my client. And I found myself jumping through hoops for their employees. And then when it was time for me to prepare to leave, I had no one to pass that baton to, because they really saw me more transition from a consultant to a workhorse. And while I made great money, that was not the way I wanted to leave my client. So I had to learn the hard way to step back some and allow them to implement so that it could be something that would be sustained.
Pat, talk about that transition going from in the workforce to an entrepreneur and back into the workforce.
Okay, absolutely. Well, before I decided to go into my own business, I did some training on employee engagement, and that was really gaining a lot of popularity in around 2010, 2012, and even earlier than that. But I started doing some customized training on employee engagement, and what I realized, I came up with this term, and I realized I'm not the first one to use it, but employeepreneurs. And I talked about when companies are able to figure out why so many people were leaving their organizations, their talented individuals were leaving to become entrepreneurs. And I talked about those qualities that people were able to exhibit and things that they were able to do as an entrepreneur. They were vested in the results. They were sitting at the table regardless of title, and they were willing to take smart risks and willing to make changes when they needed to continue to work towards the goal. A lot of organizations really discourage that type of thinking and that type of work ethic. And so I talked about building employeepreneurs, employees with an entrepreneurial mindset that have a vested interest that goes way above just their job description. So then when I transitioned to becoming an entrepreneur, I had a great time networking and creating my own business and pulling some of the tools that I learned, how to use technology, how we connect with our clients and the follow-up. And it was a great opportunity. However, I worked harder. I worked more hours. I was tired when I had my own business as an entrepreneur. And I realized that I needed to step back and rethink how I approach my business. So when I went back to work for the corporate environment, I wanted to keep my company so that I would still have opportunities to go and do consulting opportunities. And I truly plan to go back to my own company again and do it the right way. So I think it's just having that balance and having good, solid business plans.
Pat, talk about capital, raising capital. How did you raise the capital to start your business?
The beauty for me as a consultant is I didn't really need much capital because I was really selling my services to come in and evaluate I would do HR audits. The only thing I really had to invest in was some training materials, and I was able to just put that on a credit card and bill my client and pay that off. As a consultant, I really didn't have a need for capital up front, so I was very fortunate.
What are you reading right now and why?
I am reading a book. It's by Dan Thurman, and it's called Off Balance on Purpose. His tagline is Embrace Uncertainty and Create a Life You Love. And I had the privilege of attending a conference, and he was the opening speaker, and he talked about how our quest to have perfect work-life balance is a futile attempt, and he used juggling as a way to demonstrate his point. And it really made sense to me. And he said, what we actually have to do is just prioritize. And sometimes some balls are going to be larger than others. And it's okay if the smaller ones that are not critical right now drop, because you want to stay focused on the critical ones at that time. And so those moving priorities in life really help you to not look at yourself and feel like you're failing because you're not being all things to all people at all times. So having selective priorities and understanding that they can change and we're still successful really spoke to me. And so I'm reading his book.
Pat, how do you feel about who you have become?
Wow, that is an awesome question. How do I feel about who I've become? Well, I can tell you that I was raised by very loving, confidence-building parents. I consider myself to be a pessimistic optimist. I know that there are challenges out there. I know that I've made some decisions that have made my life a little more challenging, but I also know that at the end of the day, I have the skills and the support and the desire to be positive and overcome that. And so anyone who meets me will always say, Pat is so passionate about what she does. And I can truly say that when I look in the mirror in the morning, even though I may have had some tough days, I can still smile and say, you know what? You're going to make it, and we're going to just keep working at it until it gets to be exactly where we want it to be. So I have to say that I actually feel very content with where I am right now, but not satisfied.
We can learn from successful entrepreneurs, brands, or businesses. Tell us a brand or business that's dominating that you admire and why.
I do like the companies that are leading right now in taking care of their employees. One employer would be Google. You know, they are allowing their employees to work from home for the rest of the year. They embraced work at home agents early on. They have embraced allowing their staff to work from home. And I think their transition during this COVID crisis has been, certainly nothing has been without some bumps in the road, but I think they are some of the leaders that show that business can continue and thrive even when you are challenged with how you execute that. So I admire companies who value their employees and are willing to try non-traditional ways and allow employees to have that time with their family and work non-traditional hours and still get their deliverables accomplished.
Speaking of COVID-19, Pat, talk about COVID-19 HR and how do you help employees during and after COVID-19, if it's such thing as an after?
I have to say that I live in Corpus Christi and I moved here in 2017. I moved here 1 month prior to Hurricane Harvey. When Harvey hit, I worked for a resort and our resort was wiped out and it was down from August to April. That was a very non-traditional role that I was thrown into from an HR perspective. And there are some great lessons that came out of that experience. So I really take my experience from Hurricane Harvey and apply it to COVID-19 today. And I think the most important lesson that I learned with Hurricane Harvey that I see today with dealing with COVID from an HR perspective there have traditionally been very hard lines between work and personal and family. And at work, you really don't want to know too much about people's personal obligations or family obligations because you want to hold them accountable for their work. Now, through COVID, individual health, living situations are paramount to having a healthy workplace. HR is having to retool supervisors and help them understand how to have those delicate conversations without violating HIPAA or asking health-related questions, but really just talking about the signs and making sure that they get them to the right people to make the right decisions. And so what I have seen is that line has blurred from just caring about the employee, the worker, to now caring about the employee as a whole. And I think that is something that we're having to learn and realize that you don't become a weaker manager just because you know that someone has kids at home or they're taking care of an ailing parent. You can be flexible, and that employee becomes so thankful when they can do some of their work during non-traditional work time that they become such a loyal and outstanding employee. So I think HR is really having to help managers and business owners navigate that without fear. Just be open to engaging the entire employee and refer them to the right resources if they need additional counseling. But it's okay to employ the whole person and not just their hands.
What is your biggest achievement so far in life and business?
I would have to say that my greatest accomplishment that I am proud of, there really are two. On a personal level, I was challenged early in my career to be a Toastmaster, to develop my communication skills. And I really attribute that to the confidence that I have in public speaking, as well as meeting new employees or new C-suite of executives, and I'm able to look at everyone and confidently do what I need to do. So I was able to win a national inspirational speech contest for Texas businesswomen, and I was very, very proud to represent Texas in that attempt. So that was on a personal level. On a professional level, when I owned my own business and I was working full-time as a consultant, I was asked to accept a contract to work for a hospital in an affluent neighborhood, a suburb of Austin, and they were in bankruptcy. I was completely a fish out of water. I had never worked for a hospital before, knew nothing about the inner workings, but I confidently accepted it, making sure that I checked in and checked my thought process and my methodology when making decisions. I was there for a year, and it was absolutely the most rewarding experience I ever had. So I was willing to make myself uncomfortable, step way out of my comfort zone, and learn from each one of the different professionals there. And I was able to sit in all of their meetings in the morning, talking to the doctors. I reported to the CEO, the interim CEO at the time, and it just taught me not to be afraid to jump into areas that you don't have expertise in, but not being afraid to ask for help and checking, your methodology when you're making decisions.
Pat, who are your top two influencers, and what lessons do they teach you?
I will always be indebted to my first manager who gave me my greatest life challenge. Early on in my HR career, as an HR generalist, it was easy to see I was a great recruiter. I was a cheerleader in high school, so I'm still a corporate cheerleader and a professional cheerleader. I believe in people. And I remember conducting a couple of trainings, and my reviews were great. And I sat down with him, Peter Gurman in Minnesota, and he said to me, "You did a good job, but you didn't do a great job. And what could you have done differently to be better?" And I was actually offended that he would not see my greatness like everyone else. And it was at that moment that I realized that the day that I settled for my own accomplishment and stopped looking for areas to improve is when I actually started to step backwards. So he challenged me that no matter how well I do, always look for ways to improve the next time. And I have kept my performance appraisal that he gave to me in 1991. And there was a phrase that he had on my appraisal, and he said that my communication and problem solving skills inspires confidence in others. And to this day, that is my hope and joy, that I inspire confidence that people can handle what they need to handle because of my help. So I guess I talked a lot about Peter German, so I'll settle with him.
Pat, when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered? Talk about your legacy.
Well, I think most people say I want to be known as a person who helped people. I really want to be known as a person who helped others step into their own destiny. Because people saw things in me, and I've accomplished things that I never, ever would have thought I would have had the opportunity to do. And I see so many people who just can't see over that mountain of their challenges, and there's great opportunities over that mountain. So I want to be known as a person who helped people step into their destiny. I want to be known as a master networker that knows how to connect people to different resources and people that can help further their life and further their accomplishments. So that gives me my greatest joy.
Tell us one of the most vital, life-changing piece of advice that you could possibly share with us.
Well, I think as an entrepreneur, most people would say they learned more about themselves and the world of business during that time than you do when you're working for an organization, because you're sheltered from so many things. So I would encourage everyone who has the desire to start their own business, but there are a couple of things. One, have a solid accountant that you trust at the beginning of your business, and have an attorney and have a mentor, and really be willing to be transparent and vulnerable to those individuals. Because when you own your own business and you're getting started, sometimes you're not held accountable by anyone or by just family members, and you need to be able to ask for help. And when you work for a company, you have a long runway when you make a mistake, and you can pivot, you can recover much easier. But when you have your own business, if you make wrong mistakes and you're not held accountable, you can be headed down the road and not even realize that you're taking your business down to really destroy it. So I think many times as entrepreneurs, we don't ask for help, and we need to ask for help from the right people we respect, and people who have demonstrated that they've been successful. And I think by doing those things and opening yourselves up to a diverse group of individuals, not people that just look like us, but we've got to open ourselves up to diverse individuals of expertise, and that will allow us to have a thriving business.
What is your vision for you for the next couple of years for you personally, Pat?
I've been spending a lot of time thinking about that, Dr. Richards, and right now I am enjoying my job, my full-time job, as an instructor for leadership development working for Del Mar College. And my contract with them actually ends at the end of August. I am actually at a crossroads for what I want to do, and I'm deciding whether I want to relaunch my business full-time, my consulting business, or do I want to find another opportunity to do training for an individual organization? And so I am right now, even as we speak, weighing the pros and cons. My desire is truly to go back to my consulting firm and do training, customized leadership development training, individualized coaching for the frontline managers. A lot of companies invest in the executives, but I truly believe you've also got to invest in the frontline supervisors, because they're the ones that need the skills and the tools and the confidence to make sure that each employee is engaged in giving their very best. So I guess as I talk about it a little bit more, I need to find a way to go back to my consulting firm and do it the right way, the best way this time.
Pat, talk about that person in your childhood or your lineage that inspired you the most.
Well, I have to say it has to be my father. My father is an Air Force veteran, and I have the ultimate respect for everyone who chooses to serve our country selflessly in our armed forces. And what I learned from my father is discipline, but at the same time, my father is a very happy man, and we grew up in a happy home. We always found ways to create a good time no matter what was going on in our life. And he really helped us all to be very confident in whatever we did. He was always proud of us, and he said it all the time. I am the oldest of 6 kids, and I have 2 brothers right under me, and I was raised in my own mind always saying anything the guys could do, I could do better, because I always challenged myself to be just as good as my brothers. And even to this day, I'm always in competition, but a healthy competition. So I'm very thankful for my father and the sacrifice that he made, and also being a father in our life the whole time with my mom. So it's got to be my dad.
And we want to thank your dad for being a great American and serving.
Absolutely. Thank you.
If someone spent a whole day with you, Pat, what would we learn about you that we don't know?
Well, when people meet me, they can see my huge smile. I definitely have a twinkle in my eye, and they might think that doing my job as an HR consultant or as a trainer, that people might think that I'm a little bit of a pushover. But then when they would sit with me all day and see my one-on-one conversations, I believe that I'm a very intent listener. I listen for what people are not saying. And I have learned that my job is not to give people answers, but to help facilitate their discovery of the answers that they already know. And so I think that people would be amazed to see that when we start a conversation, you wonder, well, why is she even spending the time asking all these questions? And at the end of that conversation, that meeting, they would say, wow, Pat just helped that person open their eyes, and they now have the tools and they have the skills to go and figure out some other problems on their own, because they learned that they don't have to go to other people to get the answer. They just have to be around people that will ask them great questions so that they can answer a lot of their own concerns. So I think that's what they would learn, that even though I'm very nice, I'm very cheerful, I'm very positive, but I'm also very intense, and I love to gain results.
Anything else that we should know about the HR industry that we don't know?
I would say that there really are lots of HR professionals who want to make a difference in an individual employee's life. Many times people see HR as just the management advocate, but a true, seasoned, effective HR professional is an advocate of all employees in their roles. And so I would say that do your best to work with your HR team. And when you're hiring an HR professional, don't hire someone who just wants to process and administer policies and procedures. Hire someone in human resources that connects with the heart and cares about people and demonstrates that by where they spend their time, and you'll find a very effective HR department.
Give us 3 truths in life or business that you've learned so far.
Well, I remember the first bit of advice that I received in human resources by one of the vice presidents, and we had to deal with some very difficult terminations. And I remember him saying to me, Pat, as long as you learn to bend over backwards to treat people with respect and dignity, particularly in very challenging situations, you will go far. And I truly believe that. So when people have been terminated and I've been involved, they can truly say that they were treated with respect and dignity. And that allows them to just look at their own behavior and not focus on the fact that they were terminated. So that is one, treating people in a way that they leave with dignity and respect. I think the second one is we've got to meet people where they're at. It really never matters what I know about human resources or what my consulting resume looks like. If I don't know how to connect with people where they're at, they're never going to give me the opportunity to work with them. So meeting people on their level is so critical, and learning more about the other person is more important than them learning about all of my accolades. That will come in time. And I think the third one is don't be afraid to follow your own heart when you're choosing your job, because you've got to do what you love so that you can handle the ups and the downs and the challenges and the dark days. But when you're doing what you love, that is an internal fuel that can't be replaced by anything else. So those are my three.
What have you not done in life that you dream about often?
Well, it has nothing to do with being a consultant, but I was born in England and left at 2 because my father was in the military and then got orders back to the States. I've never been back to my birthplace, and so that is on my bucket list. I don't like flying, so that makes that very challenging, but I am going to do it. I want to go to England, and I want to experience what England has to offer. So that's on my bucket list, and that's important for me to do.
Pat, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question that you would have asked yourself? I'd like you to ask the question and answer it.
My question would be, who was my childhood hero growing up in the entertainment industry? My answer is, I grew up loving Shirley Temple. I watched every Shirley Temple movie over and over and over again, and I truly admired the fact that she could be a rebel and still be respectful and get good results. And that might seem odd to take that away from a Shirley Temple movie, but that's how I learned to deal with challenges and deal with individuals, deal with authority, with respect, but still pushing the envelope if I really felt like I was right. And I am thankful for that. So it would be my childhood hero, and that's Shirley Temple, now Shirley Temple Black.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Fun Facts Lightning Round. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and if you desire not to answer something, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Fun Facts Lightning Round?
I'm ready.
The last movie you saw?
Bad Boys 3.
You relaxed doing what?
Watching the Minnesota Vikings beat anybody they play.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
My favorite singer is Gerald Levert.
Your favorite dance song?
It's old by Heavy D, but it's, now that we've got love, what are we going to do with it?
What food do you eat every week, no matter what?
Salads. I love creative salads.
Your favorite month?
November, that's my birth month. It's a month to be thankful, and you get to celebrate family, friends, and food.
Hit the gym or hit the couch?
It's hit the couch, to be honest.
Pat Bell, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast. Before we let you go, why don't you share with our audience the best way for our audience to connect with you and to do business with you?
Well, Dr. Richards, thank you so much for the opportunity to visit with you this morning. If anyone would like to reach out to me, I can be found on both LinkedIn and Facebook under Patricia Bell, or you can email me at believepat@gmail.com.
Thank you. That's a wrap.
All right, have an awesome day.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.